All right, here we're going to look at a very, very popular high contrast effect. It's a skin effect as well, so that's why I included it in this area. And before we get to that, there's some other issues in this image that would all require retouching, so we might as well deal with those first. So let's take a look and see what we've got. First, let's look, zoom in a little closer. You can see one of the things that I noticed first about this image is it was shot on a seamless background. We put a little white spot behind our subject. But take a look, there's like bends and little nicks in the seamless over here too, and it's just very distracting. So let's get rid of those first. Let's go ahead and get the patch tool, right? So these are large and they're kind of by themselves, so that means patch tool should work fine. Grab that, and this one's not touching actually, so we can kind of move that out of the way. Get rid of this little one. And again, I'm doing this quickly because I'm assuming that you know how to use the patch tool because you watched the first part of this video, right? Okay, so over here, same thing. Let's grab this, move it. You can see once you get used to using the patch tool, it's really quick. All right, so we pretty much cleaned up that. Let's see what else. Look at the football. There's a little mess over there on the football. Let's see if the patch tool worked for us, or we're going to need to go to the rubber stamp tool to do this. Let's see, because it's pretty shallow depth of field we shot this with. So let's just move it over here and see how that looks. Let's see, it's not great. I'm going to duplicate the layer here. Let's duplicate the layer just so I can see before and after real quick, and we can see if we think this looks better or not. Let's maybe move it over here. Actually, that patch looked a little bit better, but there's a kind of a darker brown area here. Let's move there. Oh, this is working just fine. And just move it over here. You can kind of see what your patch is going to look like as you're moving this around. So let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. Actually, that last one I think we can do better. Yeah, and we can. And maybe this little area right here, just kind of move it nearby. And I missed a little spot right there. All right, so we got rid of that. So now, one more thing I would fix. Well, actually, a couple things. Let's go ahead and fix his eyes, right? So let's, we can go ahead and flatten this. I was just going to show you before and after on the football. I guess I never did that, so we should, yeah, see, that's quite a bit better. All right, so let's go and flatten the image. I just pressed Command E, the same keyboard shortcut we use for merge down, to flatten that quickly. Since it was just one layer, boom, right way down. All right, do his eyes, you know what to do. Duplicate the layer, go to screen mode, hold the Option key on Mac, the Alt key on PC, hide behind the mask. I know what you're saying, very familiar, we've got this. So we've done this enough to where it's not anything new, but still needs to be done, right? And then we'll lower the opacity to something that looks more realistic, maybe 50%. That looks pretty good. And it made a pretty big difference. Look at the difference here. So really, definitely well worth doing. All right, what about his hair? You want to bring out some highlights? I say yes. Let's go to the levels. We just want to bring out the highlights in his hair, so let's just move the highlight slider up quite a bit. Like that. So really pump those highlights. And then we'll press Command I on Mac or Control I on PC to hide those highlights. Let's get a small brush, and then let's just kind of paint over those highlight areas here at places where you want the, oh, now see, there we go. I painted too big a stroke there. You could actually see it on his skin. I don't think we really want to see that. There we go. We'll just paint a couple of strokes in here and there. Just bring those highlights out a little bit, give a little more detail in his hair. Or I could go with just a bigger brush and just say I just want to see more of his hair in general. But I think I'll kind of stick to the highlight areas without getting a huge brush. All right, so we have just a little more detail and dimension to his hair. A little bit. I'm just kind of clicking here and there. You're like, how does he know where to click? I'm just kind of clicking where I see little highlighty areas. All right, let's step back a step and see what a difference it made. So here's before and after. So look how much detail and dimension it brought out. It actually might have brought out too much, but that's why there's an opacity slider, so let's bring it down a little bit. There we go. That's much better. It looks a little more realistic. Okay, merge those two down together. All right, also real quick, you'll notice that I do merge down quite a bit. The reason I merge down is if I'm working with an art director or someone I think that may go change their mind, all right, that at some point they're going to say, hey, look, we need to go back and fix that, then I'll keep all my layers intact. But for the most part, when I'm doing retouching, the retouches I make are pretty much done. I mean, I'm not going to go back and really change his eyes. I'm not going to go back and change his hair color. So why would I keep all those layers? The bad thing is that the more layers you add, the bigger your file size gets. and the bigger your file size gets, the slower Photoshop goes. I know some people are really fanatical, like, oh, everything must be kept non-destructive and all that kind of stuff. But I really have never done anything destructive to this photo, because all I can do is, if I ever want to go back, I just choose revert, and it reverts the image back to what it looked like when I started. Or I can do the same thing by going to the history palette and clicking on this, and it returns it exactly to how it looked when I started. So there is really no destructive worry from that aspect. But I do merge down a lot, and that's exactly why. Now, if it is a situation where I think that there is going to be a situation where someone is going to come back and say, I need his hair darker again, then I can either make it darker myself or go back and save those layers. But I only save layers if I think I'm going to have to make a change. All right, so we've kind of got some of the big stuff out of the way now. And I haven't gone and like gotten rid of these little stray hairs and stuff like that. But I want to show you the technique that we came here for, which is this high contrast portrait effect. So let's back off a little so you can see it a bit better. It starts off by you duplicate the layer twice. 1, 2. So I pressed Command J, Command J. On PC it would have been Control J, Control J. You're going to click on the middle layer. I'll hide the top one so you can see what's going on. You're going to click on the middle layer, and we're going to remove the color from this layer. Image, Adjustments, and go to Desaturate. All right. Then we're going to go to the top layer. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more thing to do on this layer. On this layer, you're going to lower the opacity to like 80% to bring back just a little bit of the color. Then you're going to go to the top layer, make it visible again, and you're going to switch the mode from normal to soft light, which brings in the effect that we talked about, which is this, very, very high contrasty skin technique. And if it looks familiar, it's because about every Hollywood studio uses this. Every movie poster you see it in, and you see it in a lot of shots of celebrities and promo shots for celebrities. It's just very, very popular. Now, a couple things you could do. Let's go ahead and flatten the image. A couple things you could do are you could go back and bring back his original eye color. You can go over here to the history brush. I like to think of the history brush as undo on a brush. So if I start painting with it now, it would paint back in the photo the way it looked when I first opened it. Well, when I first opened it, his eye color was the same. So if I went in here and painted, look, it brings back his original eye color and lightness. And it gives a very, very dramatic effect. If you think that's too much, let's just undo that. Undo, undo. So I was pressing Option Command Z on Mac or Alt Control Z on PC to undo those. Just lower the opacity of the brush. So now you're not painting at the full intensity of what the original was. Now you're only painting at half. So you can bring it back that way. So that's another technique that you can do. Also, let's go look in the history palette and see what we've done here. So you can see all the different changes we made. You can see that from this little icon, we're painting from what the photo looked like when we first came in. So if you go to the history brush, the history palette, you can see here's where we started, and then we did some retouches, right? And then we did a master opacity change, and we duplicated the layer, and you can see all the different things that we did. So right back here, maybe over here, was before we did all that technique. Okay, so we're down here, but back here was before. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go here. Notice how much darker his hair is here, but I'm going to ask the history brush to paint from what the photo looked like back here. So when I use the history brush now, it's not going to show it what it looked like when we first started. It's going to show it what it looked like right before we started doing this last technique. So let's go ahead and get the history brush and start painting. It's going to paint in what the hair looked like. You can see some of the brown color come back. So now the color is coming back, so it looks like what it looked like before we did this little high contrast effect. And I use this little history brush trick quite a bit for stuff like this. If I do something and make a move and go, wow, now it's too dark, I can always step back right before we're at 50% opacity and think, why am I having to paint so much? That's because it was only showing half the opacity. There we go. Now it's coming back much more robustly than we had before. So that's the technique. Very, very popular technique right now. Kind of a hip look right now. So it's a skin look, so I wanted to kind of include it in here as well.